So with the power of playing overly passive and the reactions I've built in from doing a bunch of drills, I got to master rank. The issue is with that play style, I immediately shot down to like 1320 MR. It was not a good time. And when faced with a wall, there's really two things you can do. You can reflect on yourself and figure out why you're losing so much, or you can blame the game. And as an exceedingly well-adjusted adult, I immediately went to the first choice.
That is bullshit lazy. Still my heart is blazing.
No, but this time I did reflect on myself and decided to look up some replays. And from checking out my losses, I noticed a trend. I was getting much less chances to whiff punish, anti-air, reverse the eye in general. And also, players at this point develop some sort of set play. And set play is a word to describe kind of a structured offense where usually you get a knockdown. And with it, they tend to have a lot of options to apply pressure, to do more damage. And so my game plan and goal of every match used to just be just react to stuff. But now I wanted to also implement set play so I can take further advantage of those reactions. So looking towards that, I had two criteria that I wanted to meet. Number one being I wanted the pressure / set play to be as simple as possible. Mostly because if I start simple, it's going to be easier to remember my choices mid-match so that I can make more conscious decisions as I'm playing. And number two, the kind of keywords I had was confirmable, loopable, pressure. So there's a lot to talk about. So if you happen to be still around by the end of the video, hit me with that like, sub, all of that nonsense, comments. It's okay if you don't. I would much appreciate it though. I wouldn't care if you didn't do it. I mean, all right, so let's start with loopable. It's exactly as it sounds. It's the ability to loop back into the situation or applying the damage and pressure again. And the most common way this is done is through a knockdown, and my criteria for the knockdowns was that 1, it's a special move, and 2, the knockdown is a situation where I can get point blank and have advantage. And I want the knockdown from special moves because special moves can be canceled into from normals, and more importantly with the reaction drills that I've done, I'm usually doing damage off of normals and cancels into specials. Not to mention situations like defensive light mashing that can cancel into specials, or even if I decided, hey, I'm gonna drive impact or jump in sometimes, those will most likely lead into some sort of normal into a special. So the second criteria is a bit more important for the loopable bit. So let me first explain the advantage, and you can actually use the training mode. If you go to the menu and go to the screen display settings, there's a section called frame meter. If you turn that on, you'll see 2 bars show up in the middle of the screen, and you'll see those 2 bars. The top bar is your frame meter, the bottom bar is the dummy's frame meter, and a frame is just a unit of time, and it's used to measure how long something takes in fighting games. So a quick example is if I do standing light punch, you'll see 3 cyan, so that's 3 frames of startup, 3 red, which is 3 frames of active, which means if you get hit by the punch within those 3 red frames, you're going to take damage or you're going to block. And 7 blue frames, which is recovery, where you can't act until it's finished playing that animation. But the important part that we care about right now is that advantage section. So check this out. You see that 16? Blue means plus. That means we have 16 frames of advantage. And to put it simply, it means I can act 16 frames before my opponent. On the flip side, if I try to do a heavy dragon punch and try to jump in to get point blank, I'm minus 16 now. So I have 16 frames of disadvantage, meaning the opponent can move 16 frames before me. And where I landed with Marisa was the Daimokaris, this special move. But there's a little bit of spice. If the opponent is set to recover in place and I dash up, I'm perfectly fine. I'm right on top of them and I'm +9. However, if they do a back recovery, I'm still +9, but they're far away. I'm not right on top of them anymore. It's hard to do the actual pressure. The solution, and where the spice is this green thing. A quick caveat for drive rush: it turns you green, it makes you go far, and it uses up 1 meter. If you hold down back during it, it cancels it early as possible into a block. And finally, if you press a button during the drive rush, that button is going to get extra advantage. So check this out. Crouching medium punch on hit is normally +3. However, green crouching medium punch is +7, so you get 4 extra frames of advantage. And this is true of both block and on hit. So I'll show you the results. We do a Daimokaris, drive rush immediately into a down back, and I'm +5 right on top of him. And now we set it to recover backwards, and I'm +5 right on top of him. Same situation now. So now I have a special and a method of looping. And you can probably guess what we can now do with the situation, considering normals cancel into Daimokaris. Meaning, Daimokaris, I'm inside, normal, Daimokaris, inside, normal, Daimokaris, I'm inside, it loops. It loops now. I'm good. I'm chilling. So the next part, confirmable. So confirmable as in hit confirms. So I want to be able to do a sequence that gives me enough information for myself to react to give myself more options, but also to keep me safe. Like with this Demon Karis, if you set the opponent to block, I'm minus 16. That means literally Ken can do anything and they're gonna punish me for doing such an unsafe move. There are like levels to hit confirming. So a really common one that you see in Street Fighter 6 is like when people do 3 lights and then they can decide whether they're going to do a special or not, depending on if the earlier hits hit or not. Something you'll see like Ryu's do often is standing medium punch, crouching medium punch. These combo, right? But you don't want to just always combo into that because -8, I can't punish for that. So what you'll often see is them just doing this full string and not do anything, but on hit, they'll do a proper cancel. Something in general, the strength of your button, like light versus medium versus heavy, also tends to determine how easy it is for you to confirm off of it, because heavier buttons have more like screen freeze when the impact happens. And an interesting thing about them is the less leeway you're able to give yourself, the stronger the resulting situations tend to be. And thusly, there are people that take advantage of single hit confirms, and I found one with Marisa, so that's kind of where I went with this. So calling back to a little bit earlier, it was a light the Karis into a green stuff with confirms in mind. First avenue of pressure is the crouching medium punch. Because the crouching medium punch is a green punch, I am +7, which combos directly into standing medium punch. So green crouch medium punch combos into that Tara combo, which also combos back into Demon Karis, and we also do a really nice chunk of damage, 2660. The important part here now is I'll block because it's green, I am +2. And I also happen to be in a range where I can do a throw. So I'm in this interesting situation to do a normal throw if I think they're blocking, or buttons if I think they might be jumping or doing pressing buttons themselves. And if you're not comfortable doing confirms with a single button yet, like the other examples I give, you can just kind of add buttons to make it easier. So like an example with Marisa here might be, if I do that, I might just always do 2 light punches afterwards. And so I just have a lot more time to react. Cool. Obviously I lose out on the pressure that I mentioned earlier, but you know, at least I'm safe. Speaking of pressure, that's a decent amount of options we need to be able to do on the fly. How do we practice this? Luckily, Street Fighter 6 has a great training mode. So the first thing I did was go to the dummy settings, make sure that block is set up to block after first hit. Then, if you go to reversal settings, you'll see there's 3 sections: wake up, block, reversal after damage. Specifically for this set play practice, we're going to play with the wake up reversal. So let's start easy. The first thing I'm going to do is go to common actions, do nothing. I'm going to turn that on. What does do nothing do, you might ask? He does nothing. But the important part here is because we set it to block after first hit, doing nothing also means block. And then the second slot, I am going to actually set this to common actions, forward jump. Part of this is because forward jump is a common defensive action people take, but also because you can hit them out of jumps, and if you mistime it, it's going to result in an air reset like here. So this will let us practice timing as well. This means we can now drill these options. And he blocked, so I stopped my pressure. And it hit, so I can continue my loop. And the important thing here is now I can also practice my follow-ups. Now I'm gonna do a drill where I'm gonna do the exact same thing, but when I stop my pressure, I'm gonna go for a throw. A hit, so I'm gonna keep looping. It blocked, so I'm gonna go for a throw. There it is. I'm developing some pressure. And then we can also start accommodating other things like drive impact. If you go here, common actions, towards the bottom, drive impact, we turn this on. We can now confirm into a reverse drive impact instead of a special. So here's what I mean. Oh, it's a drive impact. Aha! We got the reversal, and then we can actually just go back straight into it. Aha! So what this means is if we now turn all 3 of them on, now I have a whole slew of options that I'm practicing for. If they do nothing and blocking, I'm gonna go for a normal throw. If they happen to jump and I basically confirm that it hit, I'm gonna finish up my combo, go back into the loop. If they do a drive impact, reverse DI, and then I get a combo, right? Which means I can go back into my loop. Oh no, I dropped it! It's very similar to the reaction drills, but now instead of like a neutral reacting thing, it's reacting on my offense and set play. And then, like I said, I'm keeping it simple so that I can keep track of my opponent's choices, so that I can kind of change things as needed. So in this case right here, eventually, if I just keep doing crouching medium punch there, my opponent's gonna just keep blocking that. But if I notice that they're always blocking it, next time I can just kind of... And I explained earlier, we can always introduce more depth, complexities as we play and get more used to things. And something that came up is people started walking back on me a lot. So if you go into this section, instead of wake up reversals, we're gonna go to block reversals. And I'm going to set this to common actions backwards. And you can see right there it says backward 1F. That means the bot will move backwards for 1 frame. If you press square while highlighting this, there'll be a section called continuous frames. If you set that to 30, I'm going to turn this on now. 30F means 30 frames. Let's test this. It's 30 frames of moving backwards. Because they're walking backwards, the throw gets just out of range. And my throw kept whipping. It kept whiffing. And I would get punished for it. But what I noticed is, like I said, the green crouch medium punch, even on block, is plus, meaning it's my turn to act. And if you're holding back, what are you not doing? You're not holding down back, meaning I can touch your feet. So I started incorporating this into my repertoire. And then look at that, it ends with down the carries. Basically, if they start blocking this, I would first go for the normal throw, but if I start noticing that they are just walking out of it, I'm going to change up my option. Next time I confirm the block, I'm going straight into crouch light kick, crouch light punch to the damakiras. So with changing up my game plan to be a bit more proactive, I went from 1300 MR to finishing out phase 1 at around 1460-ish, and then phase 2 around 1560 MR. But if you remember, my original goal is I just want to get comfortable playing Street Fighter 6. At that point I was. So once you're already kind of feeling relatively comfortable, personally speaking, a way to kind of accelerate growth is to start copying players that are much better than you. And so that's what I did right there. Whenever I'm done with that video, until then, it's probably going to be the video where I got to master rank initially with the reaction drills.